Welcome to the Food for Thought cooking class, our first and hopefully a nice series. What we're going to do is look at the foods that we collected this week and come up with a couple of different meals that we can prepare using those various ingredients. So we got two different meats. We got pork butt steak and chicken breasts, and we got pinto beans. We got a couple of cans of tomatoes, a couple of cans of corn, a couple of cans of green beans, and a couple of cans of pears, a little bit of pasta, and some carrots and onions. Carrots and onions are used in lots of different things for just basic flavor, so those are good ones to have. We also got a bag of rice. So what I sort of did was plan a couple of meals using these ingredients. So the first one was to use the pinto beans. So in order to cook dry beans, you have to rehydrate them overnight. So we soaked them in water overnight so they'd be ready to cook today. Pork goes really well with beans. So the cut of pork that this is from is the pork butt. And normally this is a cut that is like from the sort of the shoulder area of the pig, and it's a well-used muscle. So those muscles usually do best to cook them on low heat and for a long period of time. So it's going to work out really well to cook it with our beans, because our beans are probably going to need to cook for an hour and a half to 2 hours. We'll also throw in some tomato into that just for flavor, and we'll throw in the corn as well. So we're going to start by sauteing or browning the pork. These steaks also had bones in them, so I cut those out separately so that I can put them into the beans for flavor, but we'll take them out of the dish before we serve it. So in order to prepare the dish, sort of the steps that we're going to take are, we're going to brown the meat in an olive oil blend. You can use any kind of oil that you've got, canola oil, vegetable oil, preferably not Crisco or lard, because we're trying to avoid some of the fat here. In fact, I have trimmed, there was a lot of fat on this meat, and I have trimmed most of that off because saturated fat, unfortunately, it's not too healthy for us, for our arteries. So I'm going to, since I said I've been soaking the beans overnight, I'm going to pour off that liquid. We're going to brown the meat. We'll take that out. We'll saute the mirepoix, and then we'll put the beans and the meat back in, and we'll use some stock. You could use water, but if you have stock, it just gives it more flavor. Fortunately, in the kitchen, I have access to stocks of all different flavors. So I actually had some pork stock, but you could use chicken stock that you buy at the store. You could use beef stock. Any of those would work. Start out with a little bit of oil in the pan and turn the fire on. I can't brown meats unless my fire is hot. I need to heat up the pan a little bit to get it hot because I want to be able to sear that meat. And this is the pork butt steaks that I just cut into sort of bite-sized pieces, just to make it go a little bit faster. Right, so we heated up the oil because we want to sear the meat. So in other words, we're going to brown it a little bit. So in order to do that, it needs to be hot. So I should be able to hear it when it hits the pan. Hear that? All right, so. And as I said, I purposely cut this into smaller pieces so when you get ready to serve it, it'll fit on your spoon or your fork. And I'm just going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. Of course, your meat is cold, and if you put a bunch of meat into the pan, it's going to drop the temperature of the oil that you preheated. And so if it gets too cold, you're going to cause the meat, instead of browning, it's going to just boil. It's going to release the liquid or the fluid from the meat, and it's just going to become, instead of getting a nice browning like we're looking for, you'll just boil the meat. As people that eat meat, we like the flavor of the browning. It's called the Maillard reaction. Alright, so this is going to have plenty of time to cook in the beans, so I'm just really wanting to get a browning on it. It'll go back in. So it'll need a lot more time to cook. So next, as I said, we're going to add our mirepoix. First thing we're going to do is dice an onion. There are lots of different ways to do it. But this is the way that I was shown at a conference one year, and I decided this was the best way to do it. This is how I normally teach my students. So here's the root ends. I've cut off the root and the top. I'm going to cut through the middle because an onion, as you know, grows in layers. And so if I split the layer, it makes it much easier for me to peel it. So I can't use the brown part, so I'm just going to remove all that. And that can all go into our compost bucket. Helps keep the garden happy. You would keep your root end intact, and you would cut your slices this way and then come across that way, which works really well when you have an onion that's small. But for an onion that's large, and especially if you're not a really big person, it's hard to handle. So with this method, we just cut all the way through the onion like this. And what I'm going to do is just take like 3 of the slices at once, and I'm going to use my finger as a pivot point, and I'm going to put that in the middle, and I'm going to just go around. I'm going to use the layers of the onion to my advantage, because as I come around, they're all going to end up being about the same size. So I just do that for each of the layers. All produce, we always want to wash it to make sure that it's, these things grow into dirt, and you want to make sure you get all that dirt off of there. And then with carrots, for the most part, we're going to get rid of the top ends, and then we usually peel them. Because, again, that outer layer is grown in the dirt, and we want to make sure we don't include the dirt in our dish. So anytime you have a round vegetable, the concept is to get a flat side because it makes it more safe on your cutting board. So it's also easier just to go ahead and cut it in half, and then you have less to work with. So I'm going to make a flat side by cutting down one side. Now it's safe on my board, and I can cut it into strips. And I'm keeping in mind the size that I want to cut this. So now I'll just take it into a couple of different strips like this, and then we come back and dice it. So you're always working toward, getting it in smaller and smaller bits. Obviously, when it's smaller, it will cook faster and distribute the flavor better. And we ended up with a bowl of what we call mirepoix. Half onion, a quarter carrot, and a quarter celery by weight. It'll have plenty of time, like I said, this dish, because the beans are going to have to cook for probably an hour and a half to 2 hours, it'll have plenty of time to get soft, but we'll saute a little bit first anyway. Okay, so I'm sauteing the mirepoix, which again is 50% onion, 25% celery, and 25% carrot by weight. This is just kind of a common basic flavor profile that we put, especially in classic French cooking. This is something that's used oftentimes for just to put a base flavor into things. If you're accustomed to Cajun food, they oftentimes refer to as the Holy Trinity, but they switch out the carrots for bell pepper. So it's onion, celery, and bell pepper, and they call that the Holy Trinity because a lot of Cajun dishes or Creole dishes use that sort of flavor profile. But in classic French, it's more this mirepoix. As it looks like there's quite a bit of liquid right now, but by the time that the beans absorb as they cook, some of that liquid is going to cook off. And so it should begin to thicken a little bit. And so the consistency at the end should be beans with plenty of liquid. You could call it gravy or hot liquor or whatever you want to call it, to serve with your rice. All right, so we mentioned earlier that we had gotten cans of sliced pears. So we're going to show a quick way how to utilize some of that. Certainly, it's a great way to use. You can use fruits for dessert. It's a healthier option for dessert. But in this case, it comes in juice, and we're going to use it to make a smoothie. So we're just going to add a can of pears into the container or into the blender. We're also going to add oatmeal and some milk, some spinach leaves. We have some carrot left over from our earlier dish. And then we're going to use a teaspoon of almond butter because this adds some nice protein as well. So let me put about a half a cup of oatmeal in there. That'll give you some good fiber. A good handful of spinach. As I said, that tablespoon of almond butter. And our carrots in. And then we'll finish up with the milk. And let's see. I'm also going to add, since we have it handy, we're going to add a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg, and a little bit of ginger, just to round out the flavors a little bit. If the color is off-putting to you, you can also add strawberries or blueberries or blackberries, and that fruit color will sort of take over and maybe make it a little bit more appealing. The green doesn't bother me, but it might bother some. So let's get a glass and try it.
I don't taste any spinach at all. I'm tasting like a richness, like something like a fruit flavor, like pears, but it's really amazing. It's kind of like a flavor that's all around these vegetables. It tastes like fruits, pretty much everything for a vegetable juice. For my best review, this I rate as a 10 out of 10 is because I'm an athlete, I'm a person that lifts weights, but this is a great smoothie.
All right, so now you see how we have just a nice bubble going. So this, we've lowered it to a simmer. We just want the beans to cook for an hour and a half or so. That pork is going to cook for about an hour and a half as well. And that will help tenderize that, release the flavor. So we should have a really delicious meal in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So under the heading of everybody makes mistakes, I'd also diced up some garlic to go into the beans. A very good flavor that goes with pork and beans. So I'm just going to add it now. It'll have plenty of time to simmer and soften up in the pot. So our beans have now been simmering a couple of hours with the pork. So we're going to just add a little bit of canned corn just to give it a little color and a little more texture. And then we're going to let that heat through and then serve it up. I also put together a pot of rice and use the same pork stock to cook it in. That's a good trick too when you're just cooking rice in general, is to cook it in stock because it automatically adds some flavor to it and a little bit of body. So we'll just let that warm up for just a second. We'll be ready to serve up the pork.
It's really good. It's very hearty. I think it's something that I think to eat. It pairs well with the rice.
The second meal that I thought we would prepare would be chicken breast. This is something that cooks really quickly, so you can slice it thin. You can saute that really quick, even with just salt and pepper. And I thought since we had pasta, we could do some sort of Alfredo sauce or something where we cook the pasta, and we'll talk about that next time maybe. That can be served with green beans and then maybe sliced pears in some kind of dessert.